see your mother. You were only given one, go see your mother. And you know that you will never have another. Go see your mother. Go see your mom.
Welcome to Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. I'm your host, Sadia, and this is my mother, Ema. Hey, Ema.
Hello, sweetie pie. So what should we talk about tonight? Anything interesting?
So I want us to talk about something we've talked about a couple of times, and we were trying to get this episode running. The idea of boomer grandparents. That there's this viral video, not just one, multiple viral videos of multiple millennial parents complaining about their boomer grandparents and how they're 15-minute grandparents. They come in, they say hello, they snap a picture, they chat up for a little bit, and then they just leave. And when these millennial parents confront their grandparents, the boomer grandparents say, well, they have their own lives. They can't just obsess over their own kid, the grandkids. They have other things to do. So I was wondering if you could have a hot take, see where it goes. I know we've talked about this again off air, but we could just go ahead and put it on air.
I don't know where whoever's putting these videos up is getting the information. Maybe that's their own. I don't know, their own personal experience with their parents, but
Ema,
yeah.
Can you tilt your video and make sure that is centered? Thank you. Sorry, I'm just trying to keep it nice and tight. I appreciate it. No, that makes it worse.
I'm trying to get the right angle so at least I look human.
You look beautiful, Ema. Don't worry about it.
I don't photograph well.
I have plenty of pictures that are on the Facebook fan page, by the way, everybody. And you look fantastic. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
I haven't seen too much of that. As far as I know, everyone in my age bracket that I've spoken to is pretty close to the what I find though, as far as my grandchildren are concerned, that a lot of times I'll come to visit my children with my grandchildren, and I want to spend a little more time with my grandchildren. Yeah, they're running to their friends' houses. They're going this, they're doing that. Bye. Nice seeing you, Bubby. Hug, kiss, bye. Huh? It's not that I'm doing hug, kiss, bye. The grandchildren are the ones doing hug, kiss, bye. They want to go off with their friends, especially the ones that are in their preteen and teen years.
Yeah, but
a lot of them don't want to spend all that much time with an old grandmommy.
Well, I think with children in general, I don't think as a parent, you only have maybe 10, 11 years really with them one-on-one. But once they start hitting the teenage years, they kind of don't care to exist. They don't care to, hang out with you. You have this experience as a parent where, at what age would you say is the average that you the time you spend with your child drops?
Well, that's a good question. A lot of times when they get hit, they hit the 9, 10-year-old.
Really?
And they're old enough for sleepovers. And yeah, I would say that about 9, 10 years old, they usually want to hang out with their friends or go places with their friends.
So you really can only hit, as a grandparent, I think you also have that same thing of same window of being a grandparent of your grandkid for the first 8, 9 years. After that, it's pretty much gone. You
got a good point. It's kind of sad.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of times, with my grandchildren, a lot of times I'll see them when they're having special events.
Yeah.
Especially, it's also a problem. The funny thing, I was discussing this with a friend of mine came over today to tell me that he and his wife, after living in Florida for the past, maybe 5, 6 years, have decided that that's it, that they're moving back to their home state because they said they have a whole group of grandchildren that are growing up, and now they have a great-grandchild. And they said they hardly have ever seen them over these past years. So they said they don't have family here. Mm-hmm. And they decided that they're going to move back to where they came from. so they can be closer to the grandchildren and their children.
I'm curious enough if you feel the same way. Not to such a dramatic extent that you move out, but like that you do feel that you don't really spend enough time with your grandkids and you want to.
Yeah, I feel that way to a certain extent. I do, but thank God I've got people from our family that are living where I'm living.
Yeah.
So that helps. But I do think about that a lot. But the thing is that can I know how my kids are kind of like over the map.
Yeah.
So especially today, and with the world economy and everything, and mobile society. In fact, I remember when I was in high school, we were studying sociology. That was one of the topics that came up, was the increased mobility of the American society, and how the situation of families living together, or at least families living within like a 10-mile radius of each other, or at least within walking distance, was slowly but surely fading away. Now, I was very lucky when I was in college. I remember talking to a therapist and telling them about my aunt and my uncle lived next door, and my bubby who lived next door. And I was going over some of my childhood and my present life with my family. And he said, "You are so lucky." He says that I have close family that was right next door to you. He says, "This is something that most American children don't enjoy and don't grow up with." He says, "You're very lucky you grew up with that and you still have that." But now, it was starting to, the mobile family was, the mobile family was starting to get underway in those days when I was in college in the early 70s. And now you very seldom ever see families that are within walking distance of each other,
Let alone in the same state.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's the crazy thing.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, I had friends, neighbors, who their parents lived in Israel, and their grandchildren barely knew them. They got to see their parents like once every 6 years or so.
Yeah, we talked about this on the previous episodes where I didn't like my experience wasn't so much with my aunts and uncles and cousins to spend time with, but definitely within the family, like you really enjoyed that camaraderie and that bond. I have a question though. Did you ever imagine, raising children and having children and the experience that you'd like to give them, like before you had kids and now comparatively to after they're all grown up? Did your dreams kind of match, or did they change for the better, or they were just different?
I think they changed for the better, but I do want to get in one more thing about the mobile family. Your father one time said to me, "You grew up with your cousins, right?" I said, "Yeah." He says he grew up with his. He and his cousins, they played together. They knew each other. They were close to each other. He says, "How close are our children to their cousins?" And it was like, it made me think. And I said, they barely know each other. They live like in totally either different areas of the state or in totally different states. They hardly know each other.
Yeah.
And your father brought that up, the comparison between the families of the 50s and 60s that were very, very close to each other, and the families growing up in the 80s and 90s that were already like the mobile family was totally a reality by that time. The majority of Americans had mobile families that were living in either different sections of the state or totally different areas of the country.
But I think also that was something a little different because in the Jewish world and in Jewish culture, there are so many high holidays or regular holidays where cousins get together and families get together and they meet with each other and you spend time with each other. And I think with us growing up, we never really did because of the fences that kind of got built up for various reasons, you know? So that I think is another part. Because, you know, I do know that my wife, she did spend a lot of time with her cousins, up all the way up in New York. So she had that experience of having, you know, cousins to hang out with and playing games and sleepovers and things like that. So like that's also the other side of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it does make a very big difference. I know because like I would always see like neighbors of mine who came from families, and when it was Yom Tovim time, you're right. You know, going up to New York to New Jersey, spending Sukkot, spending Sukkot and Pesach, and
Yeah.
unfortunately we could never. Well, we invited our families over and we're for Sukkot, and before you were born, actually, it's very strange. Before you were born, our families actually would come over for like Sukkot Chol Hamoed.
Hmm.
And then something happened where I think it happened when your grandparents moved to Florida,
Yeah.
so you weren't able to see them as often. And then we had some relatives that got divorced that used to come over with their families and their husbands, and they got divorced, and then they stopped coming over.
Yeah. It was interesting because I just spent the Shabbos with a friend of ours who it's I know it's taking me a while to explain. Her parents, her parents were friends with you guys, and then we're friends with them, and then our kids are playing, and we're laughing about like, oh no, it's good beer. But then her husband's like, he wants to go and move to like some place in North Carolina, I believe, where it's going to be a nice, you know, folksy, outdoorsy, luxury, like housing, you know, development in the mountains.
Uh-huh.
And that's kind of adds to what we're talking about, where it's just like, you know, we have this legacy, we have these connections, we have these people that we're talking to, and they're just also mentioning, oh, we're going to go in the mountains in North Carolina and live there.
The thing
You
is,
know?
that they don't understand. It might be very nice and pretty, but who's there?
It's a community that's being built up. That's what they're
Oh,
talking about.
you know something? That's so funny. From community that's there.
Yes.
You know, this is the second time today I've heard of that. Not in
Really?
Carolina, but I joined this afternoon Torah learning group of women in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
It was really nice. They do Parsha Shavua. And one of the women was saying that for the summertime, she's going to go up to, this is like in the woods in like Massachusetts, and that there was a community, condominium community of condominiums. And most of the people there's like 15 units of from families that are living there. And she says it's really beautiful. It's out in the woods, and it was just built like a couple of years ago. And she decided to buy one of the condos as a summer home to be out there. And I said, that's, you know, this is the second time I'm hearing about a from community like being built like in the woodsy type area.
Yeah, I think because people are getting to this point now where they don't want to deal with the city. I think a lot, in my opinion, this is just my speculation, but I think a lot of politics are involved in a sense of like a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of extra, you know, just junk. And people are tired of it, and they'd rather go to an area where they just get to live alone, away from everybody, away from everything. They could just be in a from community, just somewhere in Hodunk, and they can just go ahead and enjoy themselves and let it be. And
Well,
I get that.
I didn't want to rain on her parade, but I was thinking to myself, I wonder if there are any bears that you have to worry about.
I have a question, Ema. Would you rather be in a room with a bear or a neo-Nazi?
Well, at least the neo-Nazi is a human being, and I can kind of like talk to them out of whatever they.
Interesting.
I guess
Interesting.
communicate with them. You cannot communicate with a bear.
It's true. That's very, very true.
Try to communicate with an animal. Good luck. I once spoke to somebody who was raised on a farm, and I've heard this from a lot of people who have had experiences like being raised in rural areas with, animals, and those people I spoke to all say the same thing. They said they would rather be standing in front of a man with a gun, because at least they can talk to that man with the gun and kind of convince him to put it down, and being confronted with a dog.
Interesting.
Our dog is supposed to guard the property. Is that dog is not interested in any conversation. That dog is going to come after you no matter what you do.
Have you ever dealt with something similar to that?
Interesting. Well, a couple of times. It was one time I was jogging, and there were some neighbors of mine that did have a German Shepherd type guard dog. I guess it was for their business. And usually they were very good about keeping this dog locked up in, like, the gate locked in a yard. Well, evidently this guard dog somehow figured out a way to get out of the yard or something, or maybe someone got careless and left the gate open. I was like 15 years old, and I used to jog every day, like a mile.
Yeah.
When the summer came and the weather was nice. So I'm jogging down the street, and this dog comes charging after me out of the property, and the owner was horrified. The owner is yelling at the dog and trying to get the dog not to come near me. So instinctively, I knew enough about animals. I just stopped running. I put my hands like up here so the dog wouldn't bite my extremities. I just, I put my both arms up here, and I stood as still as I possibly could. And the dog ran over to me and was just kind of like looking and sniffing around and walking around me and sniffing. And I was perfectly still. And the owner finally was able to run over to the dog and put the leash on him and apologize and he said, wow. He says, that was really smart. Because I knew darn well if I start running, this dog's going to just run after me and get excited and probably, eventually be able to, come up to me and jump on me or something. But if I stand perfectly still, you might, think of me like an inanimate object and kind of walk around. So that was one experience with a dog. Another experience I had was a friend of mine and I think we had this on a previous podcast. We're hiking in this wooded area in the Laurentian Mountains, and we got terribly lost. And we wound up on some sort of farmer's property, whatever. And we hear somebody yelling, "What are you girls doing here?" And yelling, "Get out. What are you girls doing here?" And we couldn't see the person. We just heard a voice yelling at us. So then we hear the same voice yell, "Send out the dog." So this friend that I was hiking with, she was from a rural area, so she knew a lot about animals. And so she and I knew, just stand perfectly still, don't move. And this dog comes running out, and sure enough, the dog walks around us and just sniffs and sniffs and sniffs and sniffs. So very gently, I take my hand and I start to very gently scratch the dog behind the ear. And the dog goes, the dog kind of kind of likes it. By that time, the farmer, whoever this was, comes up with a rifle, and he's sitting there. His vicious dog is, enjoying being scratched behind the ear. And I said to him, "I see you sent your vicious dog out after us." He goes, "What are you girls doing here?" And we explained we were hiking, we got lost off the road, and we're sorry. We certainly didn't mean to trespass, but we were just totally lost. We didn't know what to do. So there was a younger guy near him who was his son, and he says to me, "Show these girls back to the main highway." And when we got back to camp, we picked up there was a newspaper there on the table in the dining room. We picked up the newspaper and we read about marijuana, illegal at that time, marijuana farms that were being grown right around that area.
Wow.
And we were wondering, we thought to ourselves, maybe that's what happened. We might have chanced on one of these marijuana farms.
I mean, there are still illegal marijuana farms all over California.
I'm surprised, but marijuana is so legal, especially in California. Why would
It's
they?
to avoid paying taxes, and it's run by the Mexican cartels.
Ooh, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh
So,
my
so
God.
they just go ahead and have their own stuff run in California to go ahead and sell and make money. And it's a whole business. And there's still plenty of places, you know. But nowadays I see people grow it out outside on their own in their yard and whatnot,
For
you
no
know.
use.
Yeah, of course, of course. Would you ever want to grow that?
No. Well, actually, when I was in college, there was this nice little wooded area, very pretty area that a lot of the college students used to kind of like just go to if they wanted like some sit with some friends, wanted some quiet and solitude. And so one of our friends said that he went there one time just to be by himself and just to sit and rest. And he noticed some marijuana plants growing. They weren't quite ripe though. So he says he was waiting for them to be ripe so maybe he could, take advantage of the fact that they were growing there. And he said, unfortunately, by the time they were ripe, someone had harvested it already.
Yeah, probably the owners were watching like a hawk.
Actually, I don't do the few times I've tried marijuana, I do not do well with it.
Mm.
It doesn't do anything for me. It just gives me a headache, makes me nauseous.
What did you, when you first tried it, what did you think it would be?
I was expecting like a very relaxing experience, but it never did anything for me.
Maybe you're just naturally relaxed, just being
Hey,
very
wait a minute.
chill.
I'm Ashkenazic Jewish and being relaxed do not go hand in hand.
I don't know, maybe it does. I was actually talking to our friend and my wife recently about these frustrations we have with these stereotypes about Jews being neurotic and constantly worried and always being like pessimistic, and we're just like very frustrated with it. Kind of like I one of my sisters was suggesting to watch this Holocaust movie called Unbroken on Netflix. And I went ahead and I started watching it, and I got like a minute and a half in before I was like, I'm not watching this. I'm done. I can't watch these movies anymore. It's just not interesting to me. It's not.
I know. I saw. I was thinking, like I'm trying to think of some places to. I like to travel during vacation. Every I like to take like a trip somewhere. And so someone sent me a link to this whole tour of Poland. It was when I was reading the description, it was like one concentration camp after the other, one massacre site after the other. I said, I want to go someplace to relax and have fun and have an interesting time to do some sightseeing and seeing maybe some, historical museums, things like that. I said, this trip, I'm not going to go on a trip like this. It's going to just depress me.
Yeah, I think a lot of Jews are just sick of it and tired of it, and like that's not our identity. Our identity isn't our suffering. It's our love and our holidays and our Torah and our mitzvos. Like it's the enjoyment of it. Like why do you think we've been doing it for all these years when people have been trying to kill us about for being it? Like it's just that good. Like that's why we do it. It's just that good. And I think we need to be more proud of it and not try to hide it, you know?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hmm. What was I
Yeah.
saying? There was something, I had a thought though.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Yeah, actually, um, I was and I think if you talk to people that are from the areas of like Ukraine and Romania, that south, Poland, Ukraine, around there, that the pessimism and the how could I say it, the anxiety and the pessimism is not necessarily Jewish in nature. Evidently, that whole geographic area, the non-Jews as well, is known for that type of psyche. Because I remember reading a sociological study when I was taking sociology and also psychology, and there was a section in the textbook that was talking about depression, and it was talking about experiences with working with school children of different cultures and their attitudes and their behaviors. And they said that people in the Peace Corps who had worked with children that were in like Southeast Europe, like I said, Poland, the Ukraine, Czech Republic, said that the children in school were extremely well behaved and well disciplined. But they said one of the problems was that they noticed a high level of anxiety and depression. And they noticed in general, I remember one time there was a I think he was either Russian or Ukrainian. He was a defector. This was many, many years ago when the Ukraine was still part of the Soviet Union. And he became a defector. And he was living in the United States. And evidently he was some sort of high profile person in the government. And he shared a number of secrets with the United States government. And he wound up, ironically, basically just going back to his hometown because he found he used to go and have these horrible depressions. And the person writing this article said that very, very deep depressions seem to be characteristic of this Slavic culture. And, so it could be that it might not be. The problem is that we have so many, the majority of Jews, until fairly recently, that live in the United States, were Ashkenazic, Poland, Russian, maybe Romanian, something like that. And so our association with Jews and anxiety and depression could very well be not a Jewish thing at all. It could actually be a Slavic thing from those regions.
Yeah, they also claim it as generational trauma, yada yada. I don't know. I think it's just something that we can learn to just stop doing. Like break the cycle. Like, no, we're not doing that. We're not gonna be a Woody Allen Jew. You know what I mean? Like
never be a Woody Allen Jew.
Oh no.
Oh no.
Oh no. Our listeners are gonna think we made that up on the spot. Yeah.
I found myself in the preschool. We had some temper tantrum kids this past week where I work, and I started to sing my I'll never be an I wanted kid.
Yeah.
I hadn't sung that song in years. I started singing it.
It's funny. We sing song
for the audience.
Sure, please go right ahead.
I'll never be an I wanted kid. Oh no. Oh no. I'll never be an I wanted kid. Oh no. Oh no. Screaming, crying all the time. I want it, I want it, I want it. It's mine. I'll never be an I wanted kid. Oh no. Oh no. People like children who are kind. We will share it even though it is mine. I'll never be an I wanted kid. Oh no. Oh no.
Very, very cute. Very, very cute. Do you have any other? I think you did a few other ditties about, bratty little kids.
I remember. I shouldn't have made this one up for you kids. It was a moment of frustration when I said, let me see how this goes. I'm an angster. I'm an angster. I never listen to anyone. I'm an angster. I'm an angster. My teacher tells me I should walk in line, but I know what is best. My teacher tells me I should go with the rest, but I know what is best. I'm an angster. I'm an angster. I don't listen to anyone.
That's fantastic.
It's a good way of handling frustrations, making up songs.
Yeah.
It's better than yelling. It's better than yelling and hitting your kid.
It's true. Passive aggressive is definitely better than being physically assaulted. You're absolutely right. I agree.
Oh, I had a piano student.
Yeah.
Whoa. I said to her mother, does she always act like this? She goes, yeah, it's a real problem. Talk about passive aggressive. Ooh, I've never come across a kid. She sat there in front of the piano, hands in her lap, looking at the music, just refused, like stone cold statue. Moving, not responding, nothing. And so I said, are you having a hard time with the music? What can I do to help you? Do you need me to help you a little bit? Would you like me to show you, the notes? Maybe show you where help you a little bit. I try to do this with my kids. Like if they're making mistakes, they're getting, frustrated. Years ago, teachers would say, just play it. They were more stricter. Just play. Come on, figure it out. Just play it. Come on, don't you see that note there? Whatever. But I try to take a nicer attitude where I say, are you lost? What can I do to help you? Here, let me show you where the note is. Would you like me to demonstrate it for you? Now you try it, that type of thing. No response, just sitting there straight, like I said, stone cold statue. No matter what I said, no matter what I did, she would not budge. And we sat there must have been, see what I did? When I give a piano lesson, I have a timer because I don't want to cheat anybody. I want to make sure it's the full half-hour lesson. So I said to her, what I'm going to do? I'm going to put the timer on pause. I put the timer on pause. I said, now, you tell me when you're ready, and I'll put it back on start. And she goes, okay. And she started playing. When I told her when I said that, and I just totally put the timer on pause, I'm not the time. We're going to sit here. We're going to wait. And you tell me when you're ready. So finally she played.
Did she just not want to play piano? What was her obsession? Or why was she upset?
She gets in these moods where she doesn't want to play piano. And the sad thing is she's got talent. It's like I have students that really want to play and they struggle. They really struggle. They try very, very hard. I do everything I can to help them. And they succeed, but it's not easy for them. But then I have students like this girl who it's easy for them. They really can really do it with very little instruction. They can really pick it up easily, and they don't want it.
That's frustrating.
I've seen that, and I had two students, but they were sisters, and one sister, wow, it was like full steam ahead. She was amazing, and then just didn't want it, just quit. And the other student, who was struggling, wanted it. She didn't mind struggling. She really wanted to learn how to play piano.
It's a little bit ironic.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's always something when you have talent and then have it being wasted is always very frustrating.
Sad.
Have you ever seen that or experienced that wasted talent?
Yeah. I think we all have. I think we all see it every day.
Yeah, that's a nice non-answer. I asked you a question.
Well, I remember when I made the decision to be a music teacher. My dentist was kind of a little disappointed. He said to me, I think you have I think you have a very good scientific mind. He says, because for a long time I was in high school, I was going through this dichotomy, medicine and science, music education, medicine, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I was getting vibes from both sides, like people saying you've got a great scientific mind, and other people saying, but you're such a good teacher. I remember, as a matter of fact, when I was in fifth grade one time, my fifth grade teacher pulling me out of class with a kid that was having trouble learning something. And she said, you can teach this better than I can. Take him to the other room and show him how to work this problem. And then one time, my father remembers this because the principal of my elementary school told him the story. She said she was walking through the hallways and she sees me I was like in fifth grade. I was like 10 years old, standing in front of the class, teaching like a lesson. And the teacher's just standing there watching me. And the principal looks and she comes and she finally says to my teacher, wait a minute, I'm paying you to teach. What's this 10-year-old doing in front of the class? And my teacher says to the principal, well, she can teach it better than I can. And the principal called my father. She had to tell him the story.
So why not go into science education?
Because I enjoyed music. And besides, it was where most of my accomplishments was. I had to be honest with myself. Where was my natural talent and natural accomplishments? In science, I had to work very, very hard to get good grades in science. very hard. It didn't come naturally. Whereas in music, for some reason that came more naturally. And my accomplishments, awards, contests that I had entered, things like this, I had succeeded more in the music field than I had in the science field.
So that's a very interesting thing that I want to actually ask you. And we're running out of time, but I think I want to call you afterwards and have this discussion.
In this life, we are all running out of time.
Sooner rather than later. The thing is that should you go for something that's more natural to you, or should you find the importance of the challenge and growth of something that isn't as natural to you, but working hard, you do see success?
Something that's I don't think there's a answer to that. And quite honestly, I think that that's the answer to, like we said before, these, some of my music students who the music talent comes easy to them, but these are the kind of kids that like a challenge. And maybe they also want to make more money.
Yeah.
So I guess in the science field than in the music field.
So I guess if you're trying to make more money, if you're trying to you really appreciate a challenge more than just having something come natural to you, then maybe taking more of like the science route in your position would have been better for you. But I guess if you don't care for a challenge and you're not caring about finances, then your music education degree was something more you're looking for.
I felt this way about it. I said, we've only got one life to lead. Where are you going to be happier? That's what I asked myself. Where are you really going to be happier?
Are you going to be happier knowing that you've accomplished something and worked hard and succeeded and challenged yourself and really grown as a person? Or are you going to just sit back, relax, and ride out your talents?
Wait a minute. Just because something comes easier to you doesn't mean that you're going to have that you're not going to also have a share of challenges. I mean, I've noticed too, like in the music field, in music education, that a lot of my students who things came easy to them, it was like first level, second level, fourth level, and then eventually they got to the point where they got into more complicated musical literature, and then they hit like that one piece. There was a challenge, and they said to me that they were having doubts about continuing, and I explained to them what has happened. I said, you've hit a challenge now. I said, and the thing to do when we hit a challenge like this is to work hard, is to keep working with it and to overcome it, to succeed in it. And once you succeed in that level, in that challenge, it's going to be easier for you afterwards to go on to a higher level. But everyone in every field.
Yeah, I think
that challenging level where whether you're tempted to quit because you haven't experienced this challenge before, but don't misinterpret that urge to quit as being the right thing to do. The best thing for you to do is to continue to go over that to meet that challenge and to work through it. And then after that, it's going to be easier and easier to get to the higher level.
Yeah. I think that you hit the nail on the head of the importance of understanding a challenge and appreciating the challenge and allowing there to be a struggle. And I think that's when someone has too much talent, they don't understand what a struggle is. They can't comprehend that. And that's where they feel like they have to quit or they're not good enough because they are so talented. They don't know what it means to hit a wall.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But if you're used to hitting a wall, you know what to do. So you should probably would you rather get used to hitting a wall? It's whatever. It's Fugazi Fugazi. It is what it is.
Unless up the cup of vant.
Avos? What?
Shut up the cup of vant means hitting your head against the wall.
Oh, I couldn't.
That kind of good wall.
Just over and over and over again. That's another episode of Jewish Boy Calls His Mother. Thanks for listening to us kvetch, reminisce, and of course, get a little motherly advice along the way. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your favorite Jewish mother or anyone who needs a little guilt in their life. Got a story, question, or just want to say hi? Send us a message. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, call your mother. She worries.